Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Allison's Corner. And with me, I have a very special guest. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, please?
Yes, my name is Jenet Dove. Personally, I will start with my personal self. I'm first and foremost a Black woman. I am a mommy to one of my daughter Julia, who is 5 years old, my beautiful little girl.
Aw.
I am an avid coffee lover. I enjoy yoga, I enjoy running, spending time with my friends, and I'm a foodie. Professionally, I am a licensed psychotherapist and owner of Jenet Dove Counseling Services. In my practice, I support overfunctioning perfectionists who struggle with burnout, who struggle with depression and shame. My clients often come to me when they're completely overwhelmed and uncertain as to how they got to where they are in life and are desperately seeking clarity. So I create space for them to get clear on their values and tease out some of the things, the difficult emotions that they might be going through, and get that clarity that they're so desperately seeking. Um, so yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I love that. You and I have more in common than we think because I love yoga and I just started getting into running last year. So we'll link up, Jeanette.
Okay.
We'll
Okay.
link up. But I wanted to go, of course, into your professional life and
Okay.
just speak more into that. And this is a bit of a personal question. When did you first notice perfectionism was showing up in your life, and how did that manifest?
So I don't think that looking back that I had the language to say that it was perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say it would be up until like my most recent years that I realized, oh my goodness, I've been struggling with this for the majority of my life. Um, But looking back, I would say that it's really manifested as rumination and over preparing. I remember that I would spend hours and hours and hours on end preparing for insert project here, insert assignment here, to my detriment. Making myself sick and, preparing. And it's really just a fear of being exposed, the fear of, oh my God, what if I make a mistake? What if it's not perfect, And so, yeah, that's how it would show up for me.
Yeah. Do you find that with how it manifested for you, it's similarly for your clients as well with the women that you deal with?
I think that it varies. I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times my clients it shows up as over functioning,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess is a form of over preparing. But they're just really going there. A lot of my clients are high functioning and struggle with high functioning depression and anxiety. And so just kind of going and going and going without really being aware of what's going on in their body, and how that might be contributing to burnout.
Yeah. I guess so. Just you work particularly with Black women, which I think is amazing. We can definitely hone in on that. Why do you think perfectionism is particularly common amongst Black women?
Yeah, so what I would say that it's not only due to attachment wounds that we struggle with. And so in my work, I hold space for the intersection of attachment and perfectionism. And so I really look closely at our early childhood experiences and how some messages that we may have received from caregivers have shaped our perfectionistic belief system. So we have that at play. And also, we have societal pressures rooted in systemic barriers at play as well that kind of perpetuate these perfectionistic behaviors.
Mhm. And speaking even more into that, so what are some societal and cultural pressures that contribute to that narrative for Black women?
I mean, I think that ultimately we are expected to show up a certain way.
Hmm.
We are not allowed or afforded the opportunities to grieve or to rest or to seek comfort in the way that our counterparts are. And this kind of perpetuates that strong Black woman archetype,
Hmm.
which is ultimately rooted in slavery. If we're going to talk
Hmm.
about that, we have to go all the way back to slavery, where on the plantation, the Black woman was expected to grin and bear and sustain emotional burdens without rest, without seeking comfort. We were the source of strength. And, if we did try to seek rest, or if we did try to seek connection with others, that could cost her body, that could cost her child, her life. And so she learned to grin and bear it. And that was is a belief system, that is behavior that was just passed down over time.
Hmm.
It persisted into the Jim Crow era and to now, where we are expected to show up in certain places again without seeking that rest and comfort. People don't want to see us be vulnerable.
Hmm.
And so that strong black woman archetype is very persistent in
Yeah.
today's society.
Yeah. Yeah. Even when I think about my own life, I'm at a place now where and it's still hard for me to even fully rest,
Mm-hmm.
because even if I'm just like, what, I just want to lay down, just watch Netflix, eat my
Mm-hmm.
favorite food, just chill. In the
Mm-hmm.
back of my mind, I don't feel like I'm allowed to, because
Yeah.
I'm mentally still checking off some type of to-do list.
Yes.
It's like I have to be completely unproductive. Like everything on my list has to be checked off before I can fully rest. And some of the
Yes.
stuff can honestly wait. But again, what you're talking about, just seeing the women in my family and even other Black women in my life have that same, mentality. I'm really actively trying to
Break away
get
from
away.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's harder than I thought it would be, especially thinking, oh well, I'm in my 30s now. No, it's I feel like
Mm,
it's worse. So it's
yeah.
very interesting you said that, for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also speaking about, because we did have an episode about the angry Black woman. We touched
Mm,
on that last year, and how all of that imperfectionism, trying to show up a certain way in the world, society puts this label and the stigma on Black
mm,
women to be strong and to always do more,
yeah.
when it's not always necessary. So I
Yeah.
really, really love that, of us speaking about it. Um, I do want to ask you, can you share a moment when your perfectionism became more of a challenge rather than a motivator?
That's a very interesting question because I don't think that it's ever been a motivator. I
Mm,
think it's always been a challenge for me.
okay.
Um, and so the definition of perfectionism that I adopt and use with my clients is, if I show, it's a belief system that if I
Mhm,
show up perfectly, if I look perfectly, if I talk perfectly, dress perfectly, do everything perfectly, I can somehow avoid painful feelings of shame, embarrassment, and judgment. And that is a definition that I've kind of adopted from Brene Brown, and I'm
mhm,
obsessed with her work. And I think she does an amazing job of talking about perfectionism and how it's rooted in shame. For me, it has always been much a challenge because of that shame piece.
mhm,
I could, as I mentioned earlier, it kind of manifests for me as rumination and over preparing. I remember when I was taking my exam for licensure, my full licensure for to become an LPC. Um, I was in that room just ruminating and ruminating. I mean, there were questions on the test that I just did not know the answer to.
yeah,
And instead of just doing my best guess and turning it in, I sat there and ruminated on those questions. Um, and I mean, people had gone. I was the only one left in the room. And eventually I had to turn it in because of the time ran out. All four
mhm,
hours that I was allotted to take the test had run out. So I had stayed in that room for 4 hours ruminating on these answers just because of there was so much um, fear, there was so much shame and not knowing these questions. And of course, I'm not going to know every single question
right.
on the exam. And I remember turning it in, going to my car, and then just bawling because I just felt so much shame
Mm,
and in it. And so, yeah, I've always perceived perfectionism. I don't struggle with it as much. Nearly, thankfully, I've done a lot of work in therapy, but I don't struggle with it as nearly as much as I did in the past.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you say that it's always been a challenge, because now when you do say that, I'm thinking of my own life and I'm like, yeah, it is more of a challenge. a challenge than a
Hmm.
motivator. Like, why do I want to be motivated to be perfect? You
Right.
know, like that doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna make mistakes. Things are gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Now that you said that, it definitely opened my eyes a little
Well,
bit.
and it's the idea that perfection doesn't exist. It's an illusion, and so you're ultimately setting yourself up for success if you don't allow yourself to be human, to have
Yeah.
grace, to be compassionate towards yourself when mistakes happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. I do want to talk about burnout because I think
Hmm.
from perfectionism, burnout can definitely be a result of that. And
Hmm.
so, burnout, of course, is a very big issue for high achieving Black women. What are some early warning signs that you've noticed, either in yourself or in your clients, that
Yeah.
make you say, "Okay, burnout is about to take place"?
Yeah. So one thing is when we start borrowing time. And
Hmm.
what I mean by that is we find ourselves staying up later than usual, late into the wee hours, because we feel like there was no time in the day to have for ourselves. That is one of the key indicators for me that, okay, we're starting to near,
Me
we're
too.
starting to. We're starting to near burnout because there's something happening during the day where we're not able to carve out time for ourselves. We're staying up to the wee hours. We're not. That means we're not getting the adequate amount of sleep that we need.
Right.
So that is one sign. Another sign is irritability. When we find ourselves getting irritable, snapping at the smallest things that didn't used to bother us before, that is a telltale sign. Um, let's see. Um, if you have difficulty making decisions, so decision fatigue, you're having difficulty deciding what to wear, deciding what to do next. You just kind of find yourself being paralyzed and not knowing what next step to do. That could be a good sign of burnout. Daily tasks such as getting dressed, brushing your teeth, brushing your hair feel like heavy lifting. They feel like
Mhm.
the just the hardest things to do. You find yourself sleeping and not feeling as rested, even though you're getting sleep. That is another sign of burnout as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, with that first one, I'm definitely trying to not do that. I'm trying to do better in 2026. But
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely, I think also for me, is being on autopilot. Like,
Mm.
I know I'm doing a task, but then I'll finish it and I'll be like, "What did I just do?" So I
Hmm.
always know I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's something I need to watch out for." I guess a follow-up question to that is, are there any unique factors in the Black community that make burnout more likely or even harder to recover from?
So there's a couple things that come up for me when I think about this question. I think about lack of a village. I think about hyper independence, and I think about systemic pressures. Systemic pressures are always going to be something that we have to consider with when we're talking about Black women, Black community um, in any type of form.
Mhm.
But going to lack of village, for whatever reason, there may be absence of a dependable community in place for Black women to grow up or to access in their adulthood. And as a result, that kind of creates this over reliance on self, which builds confidence, but also um, stimulates over functioning. And so as a result, we end up over functioning, not having anyone to go to. And even if we do have a village, if we are someone who is hyper independent or struggles with perfectionism, we might not want to ask for help. We might struggle to ask for help because it could be perceived as being weak. We have a fear of being exposed, not knowing or feel like we don't know what we're doing. All of those things that are kind of rooted in that perfectionistic belief system.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Is there like one story or experience that you have, or maybe a client of yours has had that made you realize, okay, we need to slow down a little bit and just kind of reset?
Yeah. So I remember one day, I don't remember where I was working at that time, but I was getting ready for work. And I remember sitting in my closet and like sitting on the floor of my closet and just crying because I could not figure out what to wear. Not that there weren't options, there were plenty of options. Just pick something and go. But remember, I was talking about that heavy lifting piece when the easiest tasks feel like heavy lifting. I just could not do it. The My boyfriend at the time had to come in and really like pick out my outfit for me, help me really get dressed, and it was a point where it was a wake up call. Like, okay, girl, like you can't get dressed in the morning. Something's going on, and so
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there. No, I've been there. It's so crazy because even though, and maybe this was an episode I needed for myself because
mm,
I'm like, wow, these little things, it's just you ignore them because you're just like, it
mm.
happens all the time. And you talk to your friends and they're like, girl, that happens all the time to me. And now I'm realizing, oh, we are all
We're all burnt out.
we need to all collectively slow down. So
Yes,
it's really interesting that you said that. Yeah, for sure. Even like picking somewhere to eat is an issue. Yeah.
yes, that
So
decision fatigue.
yeah, for sure. What are like some strategies that helped you to manage perfectionism without feeling any shame or guilt?
So one thing that has been very helpful, and a few things, being more compassionate to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have that has been probably the number one game changer for me is learning, and I've learned it through therapy. Learning, watching my therapist talk kindly to me, learned helped me learn how to talk kindly to myself. Watching my therapist be compassionate towards me helped me be more compassionate to myself. So talking compassionately to myself has been just a really eye opener, a game changer for me. The other thing is adopting a good enough mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of endless revisions or ruminations, after one or two revisions, it's typically good enough to be able to turn in. And so adopting that type of mindset, not focus on this perfection of an outcome, knowing that that doesn't exist, and knowing that as a high achiever, your first few tries on something are probably really really good and can be turned in.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. How do you prioritize self care when you feel like, there's too much to do and you're kind of overwhelmed with everything going on?
I'm one of those people that feel like, how you were saying you have a to-do list and you don't want to you don't want to rest. I feel like
Hmm.
rest should be on the to-do list, right? So the self-care things should be on the to-do list, because otherwise you're not going to be able to do anything. I mean, I've heard horror stories about what burnout has done to people. I mean, having to be hospitalized, not being able to, having to take time off of work, having to be bedridden. Like, you don't want to have to get there,
Yeah.
right? To learn the lesson, you know. And so, really listening to your body will know that you're burnt out before your mind is willing to tell you that you're burnt out. And so, really listening to your body and those early telltale signs is going to be important. So, building in self care habits on a daily basis, it could be simple as making sure you're drinking enough water.
Hmm.
Making sure you're drinking enough water, having a basic skincare routine. Are you taking care of your skin? How are you eating? Are you eating nutritiously? Are you moving your body daily? Things of that nature. Like, we don't need to overcomplicate it with these, spa days and spa treatments, and all that stuff is lovely, but making sure that the habits are built into your day, that's truly how we make it more sustainable for us, make self-care more sustainable for ourselves.
Yeah. I love what you said. Make it more sustainable. So make it work for you and how you can actually achieve it. I love that.
Yeah.
So how do you handle expectations as far as when it relates to perfectionism, when things are happening without losing your sense of self?
So one thing that I think is important is detaching productivity to from your self-worth.
Hmm.
So making sure I keep those two things separate is important, and also making sure that I'm talking kind to myself as I'm producing. If I'm not able to produce what I had hoped for on a certain day, that's not an opportunity to, you know, talk down on myself, beat myself up. That is an opportunity to be very kind to myself and really explore, like, well, something's going on where I needed to rest more this day than than produce. And so let me really lean into that. That's not an opportunity to be like, well, I should have done more. I should have done this. I should have been able to XYZ. That's an opportunity just to really lean into your rest. Your body is talking to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I do want to really quickly, you touched on having a village, having a community and the importance of that. How can like our friends, our family, colleagues, how can they support us as black women who might be struggling with perfectionism and maybe even burnout?
Check in on us.
Hmm.
Check in on us. I think that oftentimes we because we look like we have it all together, we get overlooked. So I think it's important that you check in on us, but also if you're going to check in on us, be prepared to hold space for us to
Hmm.
fall apart because we need space to fall apart. You know, whether it's in therapy, whether it's with our village, be able to hold space for that. And sometimes I find that people don't want to see us fall apart. It's difficult for people to hold space when you're the person who's always having it all together. It makes them uncomfortable. And so just making sure that you're going to the right people within your village so you can truly be vulnerable with them if you are struggling.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Holding space. I think that's a forgotten piece.
Hmm.
And myself, we all forget. And just even with the whole mindset of perfectionism, are there any ways that we can reframe what perfectionism looks like into something that might be a little bit more empowering and not really destructive?
Really focusing on the good enough mindset. I think that's going to be key here. Focusing on realistic standards, attainable goals, making small improvements over time. It's really understanding that effort and progress say a lot more than perfection because, again, perfection just doesn't exist.
Hmm.
And so measuring your success based off of the small wins are what's important.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I do have one more question before we
Mm.
go. What are any resources? They can be books, podcasts, anything, any online communities that you would recommend for our listeners that if they're interested and they want to dig a little bit deeper into this, what would you recommend?
So Brene Brown is always my go-to. That's where I'm
Hmm.
going to steer people. So, The Gift of Imperfections by Brene Brown is an amazing book, and I thought it was just me, but it isn't by Brene Brown. Both of those books were like just game changers for me, and providing the language that I needed around shame, around perfectionism, to really make sense of my experiences. So, if you're someone who's struggling with this, I highly encourage you to grab those two books and read them because they will be completely validating for you. You'll see having language to describe what you have been going through can do wonders for your healing journey.
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you so much, Jeanette. Please let the people know where they can find you on social media. Like, let them
Yeah.
know, girl. Let them know everything, all of it.
Yes, you can find me on all socials, TikTok and Instagram at Jenet Dove Counseling. You can also visit my website, JenetDove.com, if you want to look at my blog or book a session. I am licensed in Texas, Arizona, and South Carolina and Florida. So if you're in any of those states, I would be happy to support you in your healing journey. So feel free to reach out.
Awesome. And thank you again so much for coming on. I really enjoyed our conversation
Me
so
too.
much. I really loved it. And for, of course, our listeners, as always, God bless. Have an amazing day. And thank y'all for listening to Allison's Corner.